Holy smokes. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do us well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends if you want to support this rebel outpost. If you want to support the home for college football sickos with a donation to help us keep the lights on, hit that $sign where you make your comments, and I'll get to your super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody, one and all, into the studio that sits on the corner, the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend with your comments and with your phone calls. We have got ourselves an interesting show. We're going to go in all sorts of directions, but keep your head on a swivel. Keep your head on a swivel during this live show, please. PATC family, keep your head on a swivel. If there's breaking news, put it in the chat room in regards to what is going on in Destin, Florida, the SEC spring meetings that are going on. And of course, Claudia Wilkin. Well, that might not be her name. The judge. We're waiting on her decision. So we're going to go through some reporting that happened earlier in the day, mostly around Brett McMurphy's reporting. We got a strange little nugget that came out of Southern California, a certain newspaper. Somebody, and it's a writer that I have used before when it comes to reading here on the show, what he's got to say, what he's reporting on. And the article had mostly to do with the Pac-12 and the Mountain West. The mediation that is going on. There is a deadline of June 1st and all this other stuff. I'm going to go through the article, but I'm going to stop short, well short of what the article is really about. And I choose not to go into the deep weeds on what is going on between the Mountain West and the Pac-12 when it comes to mediation, because I have no clue. I have no clue, no guess, no speculation, no information. But there was something dropped in there about the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, UNLV, and the Big 12. So I'm gonna show it to you all later in the monologue. I'm gonna give you my opinion of it. I'm not gonna be quite in agreement with what was said, or at least I haven't heard. Nobody has told me what is said in this article. However, there's another element that we're all going to have to consider. Anyways, enough with the teases. We'll get back to that in the back end of the monologue. UNLV Rebels. We're going to talk about that. Is it time? Is it time for truce between the Big 12 and ACC? Is it time to put down the swords and pick up the plowshare? The plows. Is it time to put away all these threats? What about a truce? What about the Big 12 and the ACC coming together to fight the Big 10 and the SEC? What about, I'm not talking about a merger. We're not talking about a merger. How about an ACC and a Big 12 advisory group among the two conferences, just like what the Big 10 and the SEC has? Why not? Maybe these clandestine calls, these secret meetings that have been going on in early May with Smash Capital on the line, with several of the Big 12 and ACC schools, maybe this is the beginning of an advisory group between the two schools. The two conferences, excuse me. I don't know. But maybe, just maybe, it's time for truce. Peace at our times. We're going to be going over John Wilner article, Mercury News. He just put it out there. So we got a lot to get to. And lastly, in the monologue, again, very interesting live show up ahead today. what, where, when, how the SEC, the Southeastern Conference, where are they going to end up with when it comes to the college football playoff format? You know, it's interesting. Silent Petiti doesn't say anything, but we know where the Big Ten stands. Greg Sankey is talking like he's trying to sell you a car, working out of a car dealership. Greg Sankey, Sankey's car dealer. He's talking a mile a minute, and we don't know where the SEC stands, do we? I did an episode earlier today, episode 436. It is open for everybody. Go check it out after this live show. Go check it out. But basically is the SEC is dealing with these two options, right? 5 plus 11, 5 automatic auto bids for the 5 top ranked champions, and then 11 at-large bids. 11 of them. Versus the 4-4-2-2-1-3. Those two models seem to be the two options. Now, maybe something will change. You know where we sit at Peek Around the Corner. If the Big Ten and the SEC don't get 4 auto bids each, I got to eat an abomination live in front of the camera. I got to eat a cheeseburger, which is the worst thing that you humans have ever created. So you know where I stand. You know that I don't like it. I'd rather have the 5. I take the 5 plus 11. I love the 5 plus the 7. I'll take the 5 plus 11. But there is clear advantages and disadvantages. Both models. Not just for the SEC, but for the Big 12 and the ACC as well. And in the episode, we go through them, so go check it out. So, Greg Sankey has hinted yesterday, before really the spring meeting started, he hinted on Memorial Day in that big Ross Dellinger article that maybe not everything has been agreed upon within the Southeastern Conference among the members. Greg Sankey has alluded to that. We haven't been committed to a model, he says. The title of this show, this live show today, is Today, the SEC Tips Their Hand for College Football Playoffs. Something was said by a certain somebody and then followed up by a certain somebody, but I don't want to muddy the message here. Somebody came out of the SEC meetings and said a certain something which I believe, and I could end up being wrong, and I'll take the big L and I'll eat the cheeseburger, but I think it hints towards really, truly the Southeastern Conference has made a decision. And we're going to get to that at the end of the monologue. Somebody said something which to me means they truly have made their decision. Now, I was watching Paul Feinbaum. I was watching the SEC network. I watched him interview guest after guest on the shores of Destin, Florida. I heard Pat Forty and other guests coming on, and they're talking about the decisions, SEC, what should they do, what should they do. if they had a 16-team playoffs last year with a 5+11, they would have gotten 6 teams into the playoffs. I've heard all that. I heard one right after the other, one right after the other. Again, there is clear advantages and disadvantages, both sides of the ledger for the Southeastern Conference in whatever model they support. And we know all this, right? The 5+11, they would get a lot more bids than probably the 4-4, 2-2-1-3. But then again, on the 4-4, 2-2-1-3, they're going to be able to have that 9th conference game, playing games, whatever. But there is something in the waters in Florida during the SEC meetings. The true motivation on the decision that the SEC is going to make, and I think it became really, really clear. Now, some of you are going to disagree with me because some of you are going to say, Greg, your cheese have slipped off your cracker just because this certain person said this certain thing. That doesn't mean anything, Greg. I think it does. I think it does. Especially when somebody else came along and followed up those statements who holds the same position at a different SEC university and said basically the same thing. So we're going to go through that. We got a lot to get to. Thank you for joining us here at Peek Around the Corner live show, Tuesday, May 27th. Let's do our roll call. A. Mac is in the house. Matthew Carlson, go blue. Steele Austin, go Utes, go Pokes. MBM, the Cowboy. The Sun Devil, Antoine Johnson. Thomas, RTR, Mountaineer Memes, Cheese on Tacos. No. No. And let's just say cheese taco. Charlie Atwood is in the house. Bob Swanger, Devil Frog, the Cornhusker, Scathing, yes, the Buffalo, Richard L. Thanks for coming on in. Mr. Seminole Daniel Gorby is in the house. Terrapin, D5 Terps, Vox, Quindaro, Rock, Chalk, Jayhawk, Muggy Wow is in the house. The Horned Frog, Mick Stevens, Preston from Greensboro, North Carolina is in the house. 21 Bucket 21. Every day I'm liking the SEC and the Big Ten. Less and less. All good. 720 made it on in on time. The Architect is in the house. The Evil Badger, Jeff Olson, is in the house. Coy is here. Jose Trojan, Fight On, is here. Chef Mall. Mr. Monkey Says. Daniel Gygax, the Mountaineer, is in the house. Dante's Inferno Purgatory. The LA Times, I don't know what that means. Tom DeBay is here. Jeff J. Chapman. Kenner Bowman, thanks for coming on in. The Hokie Nick Boardman is in the house. Dave B. Thank you. Rock and Rant is coming on in. No advisory group, no alliance, no commission. None of this does crap, in my opinion. The BYU Cougar, Kenneth Stromness, is here. Trevor Doy, I hope I pronounced that correct, is in the house. Tom DeBay is here. Who else is coming on in? Stephen Vitt, Ohio Bobcat, is in the house. My goodness. Mowing After Dark, Sankey sweeps the leg. G. Brew is here. The Almighty Finn, Taylor Mott, Big Gun Shop, Sing Cheeseburger in Paradise. I tell you what, the wife and I, when we did a vacation in Hawaii, Waikiki Beach, last August, we had to walk by that restaurant. I don't know what it was called. Cheeseburger Paradise or Paradise Cheeseburger. It was a glass windows, of course, going through. No, it wasn't. It was wide open. It was wide open. And I walked by there and I looked at the crowd in there and I just shook my head. I just shook my head and I told my wife, look at those people. Absolutely seduced by the cheesification of America. Putting that wet, that salty, that cheese, because they don't properly season their hamburger. This is how they do it, by putting cheese on there. It's disgusting. And I walked on by and I didn't look back. Rod Nix is in the house. Rod Nix is here. Rob Ellen is here. Thanks for coming on in. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Jeff Olson, the evil badger. Of course. Jeff Olson is part of the conspiracy. Jeff Olson is an evil badger. He's part of Big Dairy. People are complaining about Big Pharma, Big Oil, the military industrial complex. The number one conspiracy in our land is the cheesification of America, Big Dairy, led by Jeff Olson, the evil badger. If you are of my age, which is old, and you drive by a restaurant or you drive by a fast food place in the 70s or 80s, you know what you saw pictures of? You saw pictures of a hamburger. Of a hamburger with possibly a tomato on the outside, lettuce, some onions. Now, what do you see when you drive by a fast food place now? All you see is cheese. That is one of the key components of the cheesification of America. These posters, these pictures, they put up all on the wall. Cheese, cheese, cheese. They're giving you melted cheese with your French fries. Cheese is everywhere. Okay. I'm going to get off my soapbox. We have got a lot to get to today. A lot to get to. Jeff Olson, really good friend of mine, have set me off. Mowing after dark. Be careful, mowing. Be very careful. October 4th is a-coming. October 4th is a-coming. Now, let's go through some reporting here. Just quickly here. I want to get you phone calls as quick as I can. Brett McMurphy, college football playoff format with 5 auto bids. Right? Plus rest of the field with at-large teams, whether it's 12, 14, or 16 team field, has been proposed multiple times to the Big Ten and the SEC, sources said. The Big Ten and the SEC have proposed the 4 auto bids, right? 4-4-2-2-1-3. So, what Brett McMurphy is telling everybody is, and what Brandon Marcello reported yesterday, which we covered on a live show, is that the Big 12, the ACC, the G6, they've already proposed this 5 auto bids plus whatever. Multiple times. 5 plus 11, 5 plus 9, whatever it takes. 5 plus something. But it hasn't happened yet. It hasn't, it hasn't happened because the Big Ten and the SEC They have the voting power within the CFP governance. So all this talk of the SEC, Sankey really wanting these at-large bids to take, because they're going to get all these bids, 5 plus 11. All the Southeastern Conference had to do in the last 3 or 4 weeks is agree with the Big 12 and the ACC, but they haven't done it yet, have they? They haven't done it yet, have they? The Big 10 would not be able to stop that format. This isn't the tip of the hand that I talked about earlier. We are going to get to that at the end of the monologue, but we're going to start with this, right? Okay. Brett McMurphy, teams per conference based on current alignment that would have qualified for the past 11 college football playoffs if only the top 16 seeded teams received bids. So on average, the Big 10 would have gotten 5, the SEC would have gotten about 5, the Big 12, 2.5, the ACC a little bit over 2. Again, depending on how many years you use, depending on what type of structure you use, this is top 16 seeded, doesn't have to do with having conference champions get automatic bids. The numbers are going to change here and there, but basically they are what they are. A little bit of change here, a little bit of change there in the numbers. Brett McMurphy, a little bit of different data here. In a proposed 4-4-2-2-1-3 playoff format, how many teams based on current leagues would have made the 16-team playoff in the past 11 years ranked outside of the top 16? Okay? So you've got 16 in the playoffs. Okay? In the past 11 years, you would have had 7 group of 6 teams make the playoffs that were ranked outside the top 16, and that makes sense. That makes sense. You would have had 3 ACC teams make the playoffs in the last 11 years that were ranked outside the top 16, 3 in the SEC, 2 in the Big 12, and you would not have had any Big 10 teams make it. Pretty interesting in so many different angles. Texas A&M Mike Elko on why the Aggies closed last season, 1-3 with losses to South Carolina, Auburn, and Texas. A pretty honest statement here from Mike Elko. It was a lot of things. We were in situations we were not in before. Back-to-back night games on the road as the team being hunted because they were up there in the standings. I don't think we handled that well when you look at it. Georgia's Kirby Smart. The biggest decision that has to be made in college football right now is when is the portal window, and is there 1 or 2 of those portal windows? Kirby Smart has been talking about the portal window for weeks, for months. This is what he's focused on. Brett McMurphy on the college football playoff selection process. There's no outcry saying it's unfair when the SEC gets 13 of 16 teams in the basketball tournament by using RPI. I have a hard time thinking that Ole Miss, South Carolina, and Alabama were not part of the best teams in the country. Wow. I don't know. Alabama lost 3 games. One of them was to Vanderbilt, a decent 6-6 team. But they lost to Oklahoma, and that was their 3rd loss, and that was a terrible loss. Go put the game in the VCR and hit the on button and go watch that game. It was horrific. That is their third loss. How many playoff contenders last year would have lost to both Vanderbilt and Oklahoma, especially the way they lost to Oklahoma, have a 3-loss team? Who among those playoff contenders would have lost to both those teams? I would tell you probably none of them. Here's my point. Here's my point. The strength of schedule argument is valid. The strength of schedule argument does help the SEC, and it should, even with 8 conference games, but not to the point where a 3-loss SEC team like an Ole Miss, like a South Carolina, like an Alabama should jump a 1-loss Indiana, a 1-loss SMU. But you know what? If Alabama would have not lost to Oklahoma, what was it, 24-6? Alabama would have been in the playoffs. If Ole Miss would have not lost to Kentucky, how many SEC games did Kentucky win last year? 1? They were terrible. If you don't lose that game, you are jumping the Indianas. You're jumping the SMUs. You're getting into the playoffs. So it's not that you were just 9-3, but who did you lose to? You didn't lose to the top 3 teams in the conference. You did not lose to the top couple of teams in the ACC. You did not lose to the top couple of teams in the Big Ten. Indiana's 1 loss was to the Ohio State Buckeyes on the road. Alabama and Ole Miss, you're losing to Kentucky, Vandy, and Oklahoma. And you're not just losing to them, you're losing to them bad. And South Carolina, I'm sorry, but I loved you. You were knocking on the door. You were the next team. But you lost to both the Ole Miss. You lost to Alabama. You had 3 losses. I don't know. I don't think it was close. It was close. It was close, but it wasn't good enough. You get the benefit. Southeastern Conference, you get the benefit of playing a tougher conference schedule well, most of your teams, not all your teams. Look at Texas conference schedule last year. Look at Texas. So again, I think the committee got it right, but the SEC doesn't think the committee got it right. They don't think they got it close to being right. And we're going to get to that in the back end of the monologue. Let's first get to Ryan Willie's very generous super chat here. Of course the good badgers love a nice juicy cheeseburger with fried onions, tomato, and a bacon. You don't need the cheeseburger on there if you've got the fried onions and the tomato and the bacon. The bacon gives you the salt. You don't need the salt from the cheese. Ryan Willie, you have been cheesified by the big dairy. You and Jeff Olson and the rest of you people in the chat room. My goodness. But thank you for the super chat, Ryan Willie. I do appreciate it. Appreciate your generosity. And of course, we can agree to disagree on the important issues in college football and cheeseburgers. And cheeseburger. Cranky Tiger says, I really think the 5'11 model has legs. Again, I'm going to get to that in the back end of the monologue. Hold on, Cranky Tiger. Everybody, hold on. Thank you, Ryan Willie. Thank you so very much for your generosity. Thank you so very much. The Big Gun Shop. Is it safe to assume that the votes that UNC has to dissolve the ACC already have landing spots somewhere else? No, I don't think it's safe to assume that, and I don't think, boy, if that happened, I would be absolutely shocked. No, it's not safe to assume that. I was not expecting that. Thank you, Big Gun Shop. No, first of all, I mean, it's interesting because to dissolve the conference, you think you are not, let me put it this way. To leave the conference, to leave the ACC, if you've got a landing spot, all you have to do is write the check. The ACC has to accept it, and you're gone the following year, if you do it before August 15th. I don't know if any of these schools would even, I don't think they would want to risk the whole event of dissolving the conference. I don't think that's going to happen. Big Gun Shop. I don't think that's going to happen. But you know what? We live in a crazy, crazy college football world, and who knows? If they did dissolve the conference, I would first look at them trying to form something among themselves before I would think all of them have a P2 landing spot or a Big 12 P2 land. I don't think anyone's going to dissolve the conference to join the Big 12. I don't think they're going to go through that risk of being sued and all that to jump into the Big 12. And I don't think you've got 10 ACC schools that are going to have a Big 10 or a SEC home. So I think the odds of this happening are slim to none, and I think Slim just left town. But thank you for the super chat, Big Gun Shop. Interesting. Thank you so very much. Okay. Now, we got it. I was not expecting this. I was not expecting to talk about UNLV today. But we got to. We cover everything. This is a national college football show. Peek around the corner. And so we're going to talk about it here. We're not going to go through this whole article. We're not even going to be talking about what this article really is about. We're going to skip it. We're going to go to the juicy part of UNLV Rebels, the San Diego Union Tribune. Deadlines approaching for reformed Pac-12 and San Diego State. Mark Ziegler. Now, I've covered this guy. He says really good articles. We've covered his articles before. So that is why I'm covering this one today, because it's like he put something in here that I haven't really heard from anywhere, or at least in a long time. So buckle up and brace for impact, chat room. Buckle up, brace for impact. Remember the Pac-12? Remember the Pac-12? The first deadline is June 1st. Again, we're skipping parts of this article. When departing schools must send formal notification plus $5,000 to the Mountain West or face doubled exit fees from an estimated $18 million to $36 million. Several sources confirm that as of Friday afternoon, the Mountain West had not received anything. June 1st also is the last chance for UNLV to jump ship without incurring the higher exit fee. Multiple sources on both sides have said there have been no discussions between the UNLV administration and the Pac-12. Tangential interest from some Rebels donors that went nowhere. So again, the UNLV Pac-12 thing, according to Ziegler, his sources, it probably ain't going to happen. Now, here at Peek Around the Corner, the only thing we have said, basically, in the last 5 months, the only peek around the corner is we believe it's going to be Texas State. And if it's something else, then we did not have the information here at Peek Around the Corner. Or no one has, it's just, that is what we believe. Okay? It's why I haven't been having shows after show after show about this. We think it's going to be pretty simple on what happens here pretty soon. But Ziegler, even though he's not talking about, he doesn't believe in the UNLV to the Pac-12, and neither do I, although we both could be wrong, because of mediation, who knows what's going on in those mediations, right? Let's continue. The Pac-12 initially took 4 Mountain West schools, hoping to add 3 or 4 from the American Athletic Conference. But when Memphis, Tulane, and South Florida and Texas San Antonio passed, it grabbed Utah State and reportedly pursued UNLV. The Pac-12 didn't quite get UNLV, at least not at this time. The Mountain West responded by coaxing its remaining 7 members to sign a grant of rights, gore, and conference speak through 2031-32 in exchange for a percentage of an expected 9-figure windfall from the 5 departing schools. UNLV and Air Force were offered the most, 24.5% each. That is expected to total between $17.5 million and $23 million per school. Now finally, this is the last part of the article that we are going to cover. The last part of the article that we're going to cover, PATC money shot number 1, the only one of this article, coming up. Another plus was a clause in the GORG allowing UNLV or anyone else to accept an invitation to a power conference before 2031-32 without penalty. So UNLV could go to another power conference if they ever got an invitation, and there's no penalty. That's how they coaxed UNLV in. And according to Mark Ziegler, the San Diego Tribune and the Rebels are quietly confident that the Big 12 is a viable option. So confident, sources said, that they've told incoming freshman football recruits they'll play in the Big 12 before they graduate. How much money UNLV will receive from the Mountain West depends on ongoing mediation from the 2 lawsuits challenging what's owed by the departing schools on the Pac-12. So, again, the money shot of the article, the only thing we're really covering today, the Rebels are quietly confident that the Big 12 is a viable option. I don't, the whole freshman football recruits being told, I don't know. I think that goes, I don't know how much credence all that is, but the Rebels are quietly confident that the Big 12 is a viable option. Let me tackle that. Number 1, I haven't heard that anywhere else. Okay? I haven't heard that anywhere else. It's interesting that UNLV, if they did join a power conference, which the Big 12 no question it is, they would not have any penalties. Nothing. They could leave to join the Big 12. So I don't think UNLV is a candidate to join the Big 12. I don't think the Big 12 has them. I haven't heard that. However, and there is a however, I will leave I'll leave a little room of that potentially happen. A little bit of a room. Not much, but a little bit. I would call it an extreme long shot, but a live shot. For this reason. The impact of private equity, private capital. It's the same reason why I am not going to eliminate UConn as a potential invitee to the Big 12. I am not going to completely eliminate UNLV's chances. You know, when we talk about realignment, and we always say there's a few rules on realignment, right? Realignment never sleeps. Realignment starts from the biggest domino. Realignment is about relationships. A relationship is a part of realignment. Also, realignment is about, most of the time, about the right blend, just the right fit. Realignment is about the interest of the institutions already in the conference in their media partners, right? The presidents have the vote, but the media partners get the ultimate say in whether they're going to pay for what the presidents want or not pay, or they pay at a certain level. So we always go back, presidents, media partner, presidents. Well, there is going to be the two-legged table is going to be now a three-legged table. Two-legged table? Whatever. Now it's a three. Now instead of a tent with two pole tents, now there's three. That's not a good one either. Whatever. There's that third component involved in this. Potentially going forward. It is why we believe here at Peek Around the Corner that UConn could be part of the mix in the future for the Big 12. We don't know. It's we do believe, we've been told that they're named, that university, that region. There's a lot of private capital. You look up private capital. They're in a couple. They're located in about 5 different regions of this country, right? There's a bunch of it up in New York, up in that region. UConn would be a part of that. There's a couple in Texas and Dallas, some in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, and but the point is, UNLV could be of interest from a private capital standpoint. What they could do in that city, the revenue that they could produce, the relationships with the consortium of sports books or the sponsorships, whatever. I mean, so in that world of private capital being a partner, or private equity possibly owning 10% of your conference, or whatever the percentage is, whatever, that is something that that influence what they would want, I don't have my arms around that at all. I don't know if anyone does. We don't know. We're entering a new world here, and it's going to affect everything, and it has to affect the decisions of what the conferences do when it's talking about realignment or expansion. So that is why I'm not going to completely eliminate UNLV off the table, because the Big 12 is looking at some stuff. So anyways, I just wanted to point that out. San Diego Tribune, Mark Ziegler, a writer that we have, he's got credibility, putting out there that UNLV believes they are a viable option for the Big 12 in the future. MBM, thank you so much for the super chat, Mr. Cowboy, Oklahoma State. Greg, my knowledge of Minnesotan culture doesn't extend beyond Burgess, Meredith, Mathau, and Lemon quotes. Does everyone share your disdain for dairy? I don't have a disdain for dairy. I like cheese. I believe that cheese has a rightful place in the kitchen, in the refrigerator, in the home. But I use cheese the way cheese used to be used. Not after the cheesification of America, pre-cheesification of America. Don't slather it all over your meats. You ever been to Katz Deli in New York? You ever been to Katz Deli? You ever been to a really good deli place that's been around for 80, 70, 60 years? Are they slathering cheese on their pastrami? They'd shoot you before they put cheese on their pastrami. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about real food. Real food. You don't slather cheese on your meats. You don't put it on your beautiful pork chop. You don't put it on your beautiful steak. Do me a favor. Everybody in the chat room, do me a favor. Tonight, tomorrow, go grill yourself. Do yourself a grilled cheese sandwich on your favorite bread, your favorite cheese. Do yourself a grilled cheese sandwich, and then do yourself a ham and cheese grilled sandwich. You come back and you tell me what you like more, the ham and cheese grilled or the cheese grilled. Okay? Do that experiment. Come back to me, and possibly we can unravel you from the great cheesification of America. Thank you, MBM. Thank you so much for your generosity. I do appreciate it so very much. Thank you for helping us keep the lights on. Thank you so very much. Ricky Tungate, Mr. Hoosier, thank you for your generosity as well. Wow. Thank you, Ricky. Appreciate it. MBM, Ricky, Ryan, Willie, Big Gun Shop. Thank you, guys. I appreciate the support. Okay. MBM, just without bias, just do it. One sandwich here, one sandwich there. Have your significant other take a bite of both sandwiches. And then have your significant other put down their comments in the chat room on our next live show. Straight pastrami and mustard. It's not even close. Not even close. Grilled cheese, absolutely. Absolutely. Bologna cheese, you might as well just, I don't want to say it. Yeah, no, I've never been to Philly, and I would never have a cheesesteak. That's why they're the most miserable sports fans in the country. because they eat cheesesteak. No, I do not. Unless, not with meat anyways. No. Okay. Dogs and Dubs, grilled cheese is boring. It's delicious. Okay, we got a lot to get to here. We can't be talking about something, an abomination like cheeseburger. We still got a lot to get to. We haven't even gotten to your phone calls yet. We haven't even got to the SEC tips their hand. We're going to get to it. John Wilner. Truce between the Big 12 and the ACC. Can it happen? Should it happen? Let me know in the chat room. Let me know with the phone calls. As the tensions rise, the Big 12 and the ACC must work together to mitigate the growing Big 10 and SEC influence. The Big 12's upcoming spring meetings should be the last without the ACC alongside. The Big 12 Conference and the campus executives will gather in Orlando on Wednesday, tomorrow, for 3 days of spring meetings. In truth, they probably need 3 weeks. The agenda is packed with issues shaping the future of college sports, from the presumed onset of revenue sharing this summer to the expansion of the college football playoff in 26 and the ongoing push by the power conferences to acquire more influence within the sprawling NCAA. One thing the Big 12 should add to the agenda this week is aligning next year's spring meetings with those in the ACC. The conferences have no choice but to combine forces as the SEC and the Big Ten, flush with media rights cash and football blue bloods, tighten their grip on the college sports to the potential detriment of everyone else. We recommend Mercury News John Wilner, the Big 12 and the ACC stage their 2026 meetings in the same hotel at the same time, reserve space in adjoining conference rooms, and conduct several joint sessions. It's increasingly clear that the best strategy for each is to move forward together, not as a merged entity, but with a united front and a shared vision. The threat from above is substantial and gaining strength. Think about that. The threat is substantial. The Big Ten and the SEC, and it is gaining strength. The latest example unfolded Monday night as fans from coast to coast enjoyed the final hours of the holiday weekend. The SEC executives convened for their spring meetings in Destin, Florida, 6 hours northwest of Orlando. SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey kicked off the event with a news conference in which he fired an unmistakable salvo at the Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark and the ACC's Jim Phillips for comments each made last week. Holy smokes. Following the college football playoffs announced move to a straight seeding model for the 25 season that seemingly favors the SEC and the Big Ten, the C's will match the final CFP rankings with no preference for the conference champions. Phillips and Yormark issued separate public statements. Separate, not coordinated, separate. Phillips noted that today's decision was done in the best interest of the sport. It may not always benefit the ACC, but it was the right decision. Shortly thereafter, Yormark offered today's decision might not be the best thing for the Big 12, but it was the best thing for college football. I hope what's best for college football continues to be the priority in any discussions moving forward. Sankey's comment elicited a rapid response from Clark Williams, the Big 12's vice president for communications and strategy, who posted on the social media platform X, quote, "There was no press release from the Big 12, let alone a coordinated one with the ACC regarding straight seeding." So yes, It is getting heated at the highest levels of power, where the levels of power are anything but equal. The SEC and the Big Ten control the CFP format for 26 and beyond, a state of play rooted in the most recent wave of conference realignment, with Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC and USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington moving to the Big Ten. The two conferences accumulated by far the greatest number of football blue bloods and most lucrative media rights deals. Packed with the big brands and deep pockets, the SEC and the Big Ten seize control of the future CFP governance structure. And here we are. Except there are multiple layers to unpack and stratospheric stakes. The most controversial topic, the unequal distribution of automatic qualifiers to the proposed 16-team playoff, is best understood with reverse engineering. The Big Ten and the SEC are considering a format that would grant 4 AQs each in order to shield themselves from the whims of a selection committee that at times appears to prioritize loss totals over schedule strength. The implementation of AQs would remove the committee from the selection process and allow the SEC and Big Ten to tweak their regular season schedules without fear that additional losses would cost them the playoff spots. Specifically, they are considering 3 moves. The SEC could add a 9th conference game. The 2 leagues create an interconference scheduling partnership. They could add a series of playing games to the championship weekend lineups, with the winners earning 1 or 2 of the automatic bids to the CFP. All 3 changes have one thing in common. By creating new TV inventory, they could generate additional revenue from the conference's media partners Fox, Big Ten, and ESPN SEC. That cash would, in turn, help offset the cost of revenue sharing with athletes, which is expected to begin this summer at the price tag of $20.5 million per athletic department. It's all connected, folks. Which brings us back to the agenda items for the Big 12 this week in Orlando. Clearly, the Big 12 and the ACC are not on the same terrain as the SEC and the Big Ten when it comes to money and influence. Joining forces to the greatest extent possible without an outright merger is the best path forward, according to Mercury News' John Wilner. The conferences are drastically different in their institutional makeup, with so many private schools in the ACC and the huge public universities in the Big 12, and they compete against each other on the field and the court in the regular season and postseason. But the enemy of my enemies is my friend. Just as the SEC and the Big Ten have shoved their decades-long rivalry aside and pursued common goals, the ACC and the Big 12 should work together. Are there scheduling strategies that could generate additional media dollars? What strategic goals best serve the collection of the 34 schools? How, if at all, can they hit back against the SEC and the Big Ten? It's clear that Yormark and Phillips have been in close contact on CFP matters. A meeting of the minds of campus executives is the next step. In fact, they shouldn't wait until next spring. Whoops, that's the new covers. Anyways, there it is. John Wilner. John Wilner, he is saying, look, short of a merger, he doesn't think a merger would do anything. I would agree. How about an advisory group? How about the Big 12 and the ACC start meeting with each other? What do you think, Big 12 fans of Big 12 institutions? What do you think, ACC fans of ACC institutions? Let me know in the chat room. Let me know with your phone calls. Should the ACC and the Big 12 call a truce? Let me know. Let me know. Before we get to the last part of the monologue, which I believe is a big evidence of where the SEC is going with all this, I just want to show once again here the game covers. You know what? Somehow I screwed this up. My apologies. There is the college football 26 game cover, one of them, the deluxe edition. You got Mr. Smith and Mr. Williams, Alabama Buckeye up in front. Singleton's over there. You got Jeremiah Love in the middle. You got a bunch of coaches in this picture. Coaches, the head coaches are going to be part of the game. Their image is going to be part of the game. Jeez, I really screwed this up. There is another cover of the game where it's just Williams and Smith. So there it is. Okay, here it is, guys. This is what I really want to talk about here. Yeah, John Teal, Reggie Bush in front. This is, I think, the greatest indication of what the SEC, how they're going to decide on this, on the college football playoff format. Florida Athletic Director Scott Strickland comes out today and says a committee is not ideal to choose a postseason. I question whether it is appropriate for college football. Florida Athletic Director. Now, every athletic director is going to have an opinion. There may be different opinions held in that athletic director room in the Southeastern Conference. But Scott Strickland has been the Florida Gators athletic director for a long time. He's been there, I think, to 2016, 2017. They don't want a computer deciding it. They don't want a committee deciding it. They don't have trust with the committee. I think this is the greatest indication for him to come out in public like this and say it in this manner today. I think is a great indication. I could be wrong, but I think the SEC today has tipped their hand on where this is all going. Let me and then you've got the Oklahoma athletic director. Pretty much, well, he's not saying the exact same thing, but this is after the Florida athletic director. Well, let me see if I can. I'm having a hard time. Let's see here. I'm trying to find it. Here we go. The College Football Playoff Selection Committee's role is not to send messages, but the outcome of their decisions do. And this was a little bit after the Florida athletic director came out. So, above all else, I think the one thing that is uniting the SEC, I mean, look, they've got incentives both ways. The 5+11 could get them more teams into the playoffs if you look at it from a 10-year stretch. The 4-4-2-2-1-3 advantageous because they're going to be able to add a ninth conference game. The extra conference losses are not going to hurt them. They're going to be doing a possible cross-scheduling with the Big Ten. They can set up playing games, qualifiers. But I think the one emotional incentive that is pushing the SEC to the same conclusion as the Big Ten is sitting at is they have no trust in the selection committee. We did not know it at the time. But when Clemson beat SMU in that ACC championship game, remember, if SMU would have won, that next spot, that at-large spot, would have gone to a SEC team. We didn't know it at the time, but that win, Clemson over SMU in the ACC championship game, the SEC only getting 3 teams in the playoffs, that decision from the selection committee has had a ripple effect that is much larger than I think anyone could have anticipated, as the Southeastern Conference has no trust in the selection committee. And I think that is probably going to be the final straw. I think it's going to push them over to the 4-4-2-2-1-3. We believe this for quite a long time. But when you've got the Florida and Oklahoma's athletic director using the language that they have used after today's meetings, I think it's a huge indication that the SEC is about to adopt a position officially of the automatic qualifiers. Florida Athletic Director Scott Strickland has been around a long time in Gainesville. A committee is not ideal to choose a postseason. I mean, he's flatly saying the committee is not, no matter if they were able to tell us what, the whole idea of a committee no longer works for at least this athletic director. And this athletic director has been around a lot longer than most of the SEC athletic directors. And I think that is where we are heading. Let me know. Let me know in the chat room with your phone calls if you completely disagree with what I just got to say. Let me know where you... Look, it sounds like it's between 2 models. The 5+11, the 4-4-2-2-1-3. I've heard great discussions on this. I listened to 365 Sports. I mean, they're basically saying from a Big 12 perspective, maybe we should take the 2 auto bids. Because last year, if it went to 16 teams, we would have only still had 1 team in the playoffs. Maybe we should take the 2. But the problem with taking the 2 is you send a message of permanent second-class citizenship. Back and forth, back and forth. There are advantages and disadvantages to both models for all these conferences. Having said that, peek around the corners, we believe it's 4-4-2-2-1-3, the 4-4 auto bids for the SEC and the Big Ten. We think that is long ways down the track because that advisory group, they have socialized that to death between these 2 groups. We know, per reports by Ross Dellinger, that the SEC coaches have come out of those group meetings and said, we support the 4 auto bids. And anyways, let me know your thoughts. We're going to open up the phone lines right now. 763-260-1333. Give us a call. Talk about anything in college football that your heart desires. We have covered a lot on the live show Tuesday, May 27th. We have covered a lot. The Brett McMurphy reporting. Earlier today, people coming out of the SEC meetings. The UNLV story from the San Diego Tribune, Mark Ziegler, talking about how UNLV, according to his sources, UNLV has some confidence that they could be part of a Power 4 conference, the Big 12, in years ahead. And if they do join the Power Conference, there is no penalty for UNLV. They got that in the gore in the Mountain West Conference. Why is UNLV confident? I don't know. I speculated that maybe it has to do with future influence of private capital and private equity. And then we talked about the unity, the possible truce between the ACC and the Big 12. Can they get it together? Can they form an advisory group among those two? Do you want it to happen? If you're the Big 12, if you're a school, if you are a person whose team is Oklahoma State, BYU, Houston, UCF, do you want your conference, your athletic directors to be having an advisory group, to be sharing a room in a hotel with the ACC athletic directors? Yes or no? Do you want to come together, the ACC and the Big 12, much like the Big 10 and the SEC? Do you want it to happen? Let me know in the chat. Let me know with the phone calls. The phone lines are open. The phone lines are open. Laura Weiss. The problem is the committee members aren't consistent in what is important. Is it strength of schedule, wins, injuries? They have used them all. And another issue with the committee is, Laura Weiss, Red Raider, is that the committee members are always changing. You know, it's a turnstile. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying that's part of the inconsistency. It's a turnstile. All right. Phone lines are open. Phone lines are open, and you also can comment on that big old article from Ross Dellinger yesterday. Holy smokes. Steel Austin. Joe Klatt, who gives the best opinion I've heard on the changes coming to CFP, and he's convinced me that the 14-team model is better than the 16. And what about the 16-team model? Andy Staples on 3. Andy Staples and Ari Wasserman talked about it at length this morning. They were laughing halfway through it about this 16-team model, this idea that Ross Dellinger reported earlier, a few days ago, about not having 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15, 3 versus 14, but about the idea of having 16 versus 13, 15 versus 14, and then the winner of those 2 games meet the 3rd through 12th seed teams, and then the winner of those 6 games finally get to the quarterfinal along with the number 1 and number 2 rated teams in the country. A lot of crazy ideas out there, and I don't think they're done reporting them. Give me a call. Phone lines are open. Phone lines are open. Let me check here of any late reports coming out of the SEC meetings. I don't see anything new. I think we got probably all the reporting. No new reports. I'm going through this as fast as I can. Um, Texas the athletic director, Texas Longhorns, Chris Del Conte, getting all the SEC head coaches to put their heads together at spring meetings often provides unexpected perspective. And again, I did not add. We talked a little bit about this. With all due respect to Kalen DeBoer, Alabama's Kalen DeBoer being left out of last year's college football playoff, you wonder what would have happened if other people would have played our schedule.
From Evil Badger.
Evil Badger, Ryan Willie is on the line. The floor is yours. Thanks for calling, sir. I do appreciate it.
Hey, Greg. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
As far as the Sankey and the SEC and basically the rest of the P4, it seems like it's going to be the SEC. If I was the Big Ten, I wouldn't trust the SEC right now.
You wouldn't trust who?
I wouldn't trust Sankey right now.
Okay.
If I was the Big Ten. And I would not go with the 5+11 if I was a Big 12 or ACC.
You would not
I would
do
want
that?
automatic bids because he would try to get as many SEC teams in the CFP.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see. It probably isn't just the SEC that distrusts the committee. There's probably some in the ACC and the Big 12 as well. That's natural. Yep.
But I also believe that the SEC doesn't really want the 4 automatic bids because that way they can control the committee with ESPN. And that's why I believe it was a mistake having ESPN basically having a monopoly on a college football playoff.
Mm-hmm.
And changing the subject a little bit, I heard that Jackson Johnson, he's a moderator on the CFM and does a show on the Voice of College Football.
Okay.
Was on the Locked On Badgers last night, and he said that the network should announce the Black Friday games and some first week 1 games soon, like next week sometime.
Yeah, I actually heard tomorrow, Thursday. and it's gonna be like around noon or early afternoon. That's what I've heard.
Okay.
Yep. We'll see what happens.
Well, since it's in Minnesota this year, I won't be concerned about the snow at that time.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, if you guys win the axe, I will eat the cheeseburger. I don't expect that to happen.
and I'll do the same thing as I did last year with the
Yep.
memberships.
Yeah. I appreciate it, sir.
All right. Well, that's all I had, Greg. Thanks for taking my call.
You got it. Appreciate it. You have a good one.
All right. Bye.
Beautiful call. Thank you so much, Ryan Willie. Once again, the legendary caller, Ryan Willie. John Famlor, Greg, the bottom line, can the SEC and the Big Ten impose the new playoff format after 2026? Yes, they can do it for 2026. 2026 to 2030 or 31. If they agree with each other, if they become agreeable with each other and what they want, they can impose on it. Now, if they disagree, then they're going to be looking for other votes, but they have the power to get it done.
Call from
CFP Plus.
CFB Plus. Thanks for calling, sir. I appreciate it. The floor is yours.
Well, hello, Greg. It feels like the entire sport or the entire college athletics has just been flipped on its head. You know, I'm still processing everything that's going on, but it definitely feels different. And, you know, what seemed, I don't want to say certainties previously, are a little bit more up in the air, because I mean, I just don't know what's going to happen. I mean,
Yeah.
it feels like a breakaway is the closest it's ever been. And so it's chaotic. And yeah, I'm kind of at a loss for what is going on, because it's just so much. It's like a fire hose of information.
Yeah, it's we are sitting at the knife's edge right now, CFB Plus. I think now I could end up being wrong on this, okay? I could end up being dead wrong. I think certain decisions have been made, but they're trying to placate the SEC and the Big Ten, they're trying to do it in the manner that satisfies the agreement, the memorandum, where they have enough input and enough, discussions among everybody. But your comment about, and I'm going to paraphrase what you said.
Yeah.
Everything is so crazy right now. Everything is so unknown. Everything is so jumbled up. I think we are going to get another wave of that feeling before the end of the year, where we're all going to be looking at each other and saying, what in the hell does that mean? And that has to do with what we talked about late last year, the invasion of private equity and private capital.
Yeah.
How that comes in, where it comes in, how big it comes in. I mean, we're all gonna, and it's so unknown, the effects of it. hopefully when it does come in, we're going to have all the details. And I think it's going to be wave after wave after wave of it. And I think we're all going to be going, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? What does that mean? I mean, I got to tell you, I have when Ross Dillinger's article came out, and the part about the Big Ten having 4 firms jockeying with each other to be able to buy ownership, some part of ownership of the Big Ten Conference, that was in Dillinger's article. I have been on the phone. I have been asking, what the heck does this mean? What could it mean? What could it mean? And I got to tell you, the answer I got back was minimal. Like, they don't know. There was no doors open to me when the news came out months ago that the Big Ten was talking with private equity, private capital. CFB Plus, I had no idea that was happening. When that news came out, I got on the phone. Everybody that I talked to, nobody had that information. It wasn't like it was embargoed. They didn't know. So, what the Big Ten is doing with private equity, with these 4 firms, whatever, that circle is tight, baby. They're not letting that is tight. Only last week were these 4 firms, they presented their vision, what they could do for the Big Ten, to the athletic directors, the leadership of the Big Ten. But again, what is the Big Ten? Why are they doing that, CFB Plus? They have money, cash on hand. What are they doing? Are they doing it for because they're thinking about what the Big 12's doing, where they want to have a connection with whoever this private equity has a connection with, like a big streaming giant? Or are they doing it for acquisitions? Are they looking at acquisitions? Are they looking at the possibility of basically expanding the conference where they don't have to rely on a media partner buying, like willing to pay the freight? Are the Big Ten willing to take the upfront cash to buy some of these teams to come on into the Big Ten, and then in future years it's going to be a beneficial for everybody in the Big Ten? I have no idea, CFB Plus. I'm sorry that I went on a run here, but you brought up, boy, this is all so crazy. It's so shaky. I don't know what the hell's going on. I'm right with you, CFB Plus, and I think it's only going to get more extreme during this 2025 calendar year. Go ahead, sir.
Oh, don't apologize, because you're saying, I think, what a lot of us are feeling, or at least what I'm feeling. And it's just, there's so much uncertainty with so many different pieces of, because it's a puzzle piece, or it's like a puzzle where all the pieces are connected, but they are connected and they're all moving. So I don't know if that's a good analogy, but we don't know what's going to happen with this House settlement. The SEC is having internal battles whether or not to agree to this Deloitte clearinghouse. We don't know what the CFP is going to look like. I mean, we probably do. I think it's probably going to be the 4-4-2-2-3 model, but I mean, the Big Ten and SEC are getting hell for it. We don't even know what the governance is going to be looking like, because the SEC has been casually floating out that, why are we in the NCAA?
Yeah.
We want more power. We want at least 68% of the authority, and it sounds like if they don't get that, then they may threaten just to leave altogether. So, in everything, I guess everything is kind of interwoven and interdependent on each other, because even though the CFP is separate from the NCAA, if the SEC were to leave the NCAA, but like the Big Ten or the Big 12 and ACC were still in the NCAA, how would that work? How would the basketball tournament work? It is a mess. It is a mess. And then the cherry on top is realignment with, the Pac-12 has to figure something out soon, and we don't know what's going on with that due to some of the, concerns and the legal stuff with the Mountain West. Schools have a foot halfway out the door in the ACC. It's just a mess. It's just a mess.
Yep.
So I don't really have anything insightful to say other than this is just, quite frankly, insane.
Yeah.
And I hope things kind of settle down. I hope we kind of get direction with the House settlement, with the playoffs, and then things can kind of cool down for a little bit. Unfortunately, that's probably not going to be the case.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy. And the SEC is they are professional whiners. They will complain and whine about literally everything. It's just that, oh man, that's a total separate other topic.
Yeah.
But they're getting everything they want, and they're crying about it. So.
Alrighty, sir.
So that's all I have. Thanks for the show. I'll let someone else call in.
Beautiful call, sir. Appreciate it.
Call from
Stephen Vitt.
Stephen, can you hold on for just a moment, please?
Yeah, sure can.
I appreciate it. Eric Ruby, UCF. Networks have said over and over again they don't want a P2 breakaway. They don't want a P2 breakaway. They absolutely do not want a P2 breakaway. They don't want anything to devalue a lot of their content. They're making money on all their live content. They're making money on the ACC live content. They're making money on the Big 12 live content. They're making money on all this stuff. They are. They just are. I mean, ESPN just came out like a month ago, and there's some report. Now, and that is why, Eric Ruby, that is why everybody else, that is why when you have reports about the SEC talking to Goldman Sachs and the Big Ten talking about having 4 firms that are talking about buying the piece of the conference. My question is, I don't have the answer. My question is why? Why? Well, one of the possibilities is for acquisitions, for future, shoot, man. The Big Ten presidents, and we said it in so many live shows, they wanted Washington and Oregon within the next 5 months or within the next 5 years. I said it 1,000 times. Certain things had to happen. The networks did not like Kevin Warren anymore. The lawyers, the council of the Big Ten did not want to poach the Pac-12 again until the Big 12 successfully did it. All those things happened, and they poached. They got Oregon and Washington. But the networks only paid half freight. You cannot blame Fox for that. They're looking at their end dollars. They're looking at right now. But when you bring in these equity, these companies that are willing to give you cash for a certain percentage, that could possibly be used for acquisition. That could possibly be used for breakaway. It could. Remember, we talk about this Super League of 72 teams and private equity coming in with $9 billion and paying everybody, and happy days are here again. Well, what if the Big Ten and the SEC are looking at that from their own perspective, their own Super League, their own breakaway? And then, if you want to really go down the tinfoil hat conspiracy rabbit hole. Ross Dellinger said in his article that several Big 12, several ACC presidents had talks, secret talks with Smash Capital this month. We're not talking 3 months ago. This month with Smash Capital. Smash Capital are pro Super League. So what if there's two entities that are separating and creating their own Super League? Big 12, ACC, Big 10. I'm just bringing this up. Yes, you're correct. Networks, they don't want it to happen, which might be the motive of why the SEC is talking to Goldman Sachs. For God's sakes, that means something. What the hell does it mean? And then one other thing. Then we'll get to Stephen Vitt here. And now I lost it. Jeff Fuller, BYU Cougar, frustrated with Sankey's tone, but at least he doesn't hide in a bunker and never talk to the media like Silent Petiti. I mean, Petiti doesn't say anything about anything. I have, for months, look, I know that the Big Ten presidents did not want a carbon copy of Kevin Warren. But you didn't have to go from one extreme to another extreme. There's got to be a happy medium in there. You got to come out and talk about your vision. But on the other hand, and I said this early in the show, isn't it funny? I don't know if funny is the right word. Ironic. Isn't it ironic? Maybe that's not the right word either. That Sankey's doing all this talking, but we don't know the SEC's committed position on the college football playoffs. Tony Petiti doesn't do any talking, but we all know the committed position of the Big Ten. So one is talking, we don't know what he's saying. The other one isn't talking at all, but we know what he's saying. This is kind of interesting. Stephen Vitt, Ohio Bobcat, I appreciate your patience. The floor is yours.
Well, to start off, hey, Greg, how's it going?
I'm doing good. How are the Ohio Bobcats doing? What are they? The MAC champions, by the way. The MAC champions. And of course, my cousin's son is part of the staff there at Ohio Bobcats. Are you looking to repeat? Can you repeat, Stephen Vitt?
I definitely think the possibility is there for us to repeat. Although I will say during this past offseason, yes, we did lose quite a bit of players, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, duly noted. I mean, I keep track of the transfer portal like everybody else. But we have gotten back some players. Obviously not your typical, 4-star whatever players, not like that. But, we've gotten back some players that have promise, that have potential. So I'm just looking forward to seeing how everything meshes on the field when the Bobcats take the field this year.
Yep. They have a big non-conference. Who's their first game again?
Yeah, so about that, the Ohio Bobcats, out of any G6 conference team, it seems like we have one of the most brutal opening three-game, set ever.
Yeah, what is it again? Do you want me to look it up?
Yeah, so, no, I know what it is.
Okay.
So we start the season, week 0, Thursday, August 28th, at Rutgers.
Yes.
In Piscataway, New Jersey.
Yes, yeah.
And then after that, it's the home opener. It is in Athens, Ohio. We host the West Virginia Mountaineers of the Big 12.
Okay, that's pretty tough, right? In West Virginia.
And then finally, we have to make the trip up to Columbus to face the defending national champions, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yeah. Win one of those games, baby. Win one of those games.
Yeah.
Either Rutgers or West Virginia, and you'll be looking okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Putting aside the Ohio State game, of course.
Yeah.
I'm definitely believing that we have a chance, keyword a chance, to take either the game at Rutgers or at home against West Virginia.
Okay.
It won't be easy, but
Yeah.
I do think there's a chance.
I do too.
So,
sure. Yep.
So, yeah, we'll just have to see how it all shakes out for the Ohio Bobcats. But one of the main things I wanted to talk about here in this call is because of what happened recently with SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey.
Yes. Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah. First of all, I don't like Greg Sankey.
Yeah. He's taking a lot of shots at he used to take shots at Kevin Warren all the time. So this ain't the first time he's done this. He does this every year. But go ahead.
Yeah. He certainly talks a lot, and there's, he has the power. He has a lot of input, and I mean, it's not like he's lying, but it's like a lot of what he says, it just seems like it intentionally rubs people the wrong way.
Yeah.
And it's just, after a while, it gets kind of.
Yes.
So, I mean, it is what it is. The Big Ten, the SEC, for the record, I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do. I mean, it's no secret. I fully expect certain changes to happen within these next couple of years, especially next year with the college football playoff changing, and and they're going to do what they're going to do, and to just set the record straight. Yeah, I definitely appreciate the fact that the G6 conferences, that they still do have access to the CFP. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'd always like the access to it. But I do wonder in the back of my mind if within a few years certain other changes have to happen, such as all these rumored breakaways, and we'll just see how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's happening whether we want it or not.
Yeah.
But that's just my opinion.
I was on the College Football Mafia show last Friday evening, and I said for the very first time, I've got that breakaway clock set at 9 o'clock in the evening. It's not 11 o'clock. It's not 10 minutes to midnight. Nothing like that. But I got that thing set at 9 o'clock in the evening. For the first time, I've got the breakaway clock past 1 o'clock in the afternoon. That's how shaky I feel about all this.
Yeah, as would I.
Yeah.
I think it's happening. I think it's happening within a few years from now that you're going to have multiple breakaways in some shape or form.
Yeah.
How it gets done, I don't know, but I think it's going to happen.
Yeah. Alrighty, sir. Anything else?
Yeah. One more thing before I go. Actually, two more things before I go. First of all, Greg, I really do appreciate what you do for your show. I've been a loyal follower for quite a while, and you do such a great job with what you do, Greg.
I appreciate it.
And I really respect what you do.
Yeah, I fall short lots of times here, but I do appreciate it.
And secondly, this is the other thing I'm going to say before I go. I don't have any other place to ask this because I don't use social media.
Yep.
Would you be interested in an interview?
I have done them in the past. Very rarely. It all depends on, first of all, it depends on my schedule. The problem is I am so unreliable. And it is why I don't go on a lot of these college football YouTube channels. It's usually, I've been asked a lot. I'm not able to schedule anything. It's all flying by the seat of my pants. I can't even schedule my own show, right? You guys don't know what I'm going on. So that's the problem. But maybe you and I can, who is interested? Like, what's like, is this an organization or what? Radio?
Well, it's for my YouTube channel, my other one.
Oh,
called
okay.
FTD
Yes,
Castle.
that's right. You have one. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd be interested. You don't have X?
No, I do not use social media. The only social media platform I use is LinkedIn.
Okay, I don't use that. Okay, the phone number that you're using right now, is that the one that I can get a hold of you?
Yes, that is the correct one.
Okay, I will try to. I will give you a call. It's not going to be tonight, but sometime here shortly, and we can try to schedule that.
Yeah. And just it's called Stephen Interviews You. I could set it up via email if we can do it that way.
Okay.
Yeah, just let me know.
You got it. I do. Yep. I'm interested.
All right. I appreciate that, Greg.
You got it.
Yeah, so just give me a call and we'll get the ball rolling.
You got it. Appreciate it, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Greg, for everything you do. I appreciate it.
Mr. Bobcat. Mr. Bobcat.
Yep. OU, oh yeah.
Yes.
Ohio Bobcat.
Appreciate
Take care,
the call,
Greg.
sir.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it. Thank you. Bye.
Call from
Jeff Fuller.
Jeff Fuller is on the line. The floor is yours. Thanks for calling. I do appreciate it. Let it rip, sir.
Hey, doing great. Good to talk. It's been too long, Greg.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Hey, so three things I want to address. I'll just go at them one by one
You
and
got
you
it.
can comment. Number one, I'm just going to ask you a few questions. I'm not putting you on defense. I think it's just instructive to go through these questions.
Yep.
How was the 4-team playoff decided? Who decided who were the 4 teams that got in the playoff?
Some committee.
Okay. And how about the 12-team playoff that we just had last year?
Committee.
And how about every single other NCAA sport at every level? How is that decided?
Well, there's differences. Hockey is not decided by committee. They have pairwise, which they're going to be tweaking a little bit. So that's basically by computer. But most of them is by committee.
Yeah, vast majority. There may be some that are strictly by computer formulas but are you aware of any other sport in the NCAA where one conference gets automatic multiple bids in any sport?
No, absolutely not.
So this is sort of like a watershed type of idea, and that's why there's a big uproar. And even if there's a lot of at least half the fans of college football are in the Power 2. The Super 2, as I call them. I try to still say Power 4 in the Super 2. I think that's why there's such a big uproar. And a lot of fans of those teams are like, hey, this is okay. This gives us protection. And that's really what the leadership of those conferences want. Just as you spoke, I forget if it was today or a previous show about, how media contracts, they're much more valuable when you have lots of inventory, lots of teams involved, the Notre Dame and previously BYU's, media contracts were pretty undervalued because there's that risk that you're not 100% sure that team's going to be, highly ranked, going to be competing for a playoff. And it's sort of the same thing, the media partners of the SEC and the Big Ten and the Big Ten leadership, they want the certainty of having at least 4 teams in every year. And that guarantees them relevancy and there's no down years. There's not this cyclical nature. And so I understand the desire, but boy, it is a big ask to do something that's never been done before. And to say on paper to everyone else, you are lesser than, which, sort of goes against the competitive spirit. So that's sort of my first point. And I don't and I think we can all point to situations where we think committees don't do it right and aren't the best way to do it. And I think they, you know, there can be ways they can be improved. And, you know, maybe there's a better way to do it than committees, but we haven't found it yet. And I don't think this is it. So that's sort of point number one. Point number two is, you know, Sankey, yeah, he's out there throwing barbs and taking barbs. And, you know, I get disgruntled with his tone and what he's saying. But at least he's out there saying something. What's up with Petiti? I guess hiding in a bunker. I don't recall the last time he was at a podium. Maybe I missed it. I'm sure reporter after reporter are sending him, you know, emails and DMs and trying to get him on the record for anything. What's going on? Why won't he talk? Is this like a, you know, Sankey go out and take the barbs and, you know, good cop, bad cop type thing? Or what's your take on that? Yes, you say that you know where the Big Ten stands, but knowing where they stand and actually having to publicly defend it are two completely different things.
I agree. It's one of the multiple things that I've been ripping on Petiti since he became the commissioner. He's the ultimate extreme from Kevin Warren. Kevin Warren talked too much, went over the tip of his skis, and Petiti is doing the opposite, but to an extreme that I don't think is acceptable from a man of a leadership position of the Big Ten Conference, not talking at all. I don't think it's acceptable.
I have to agree. And for some reason, he's just skating by, and you're not seeing reporters or other people sort of
they don't want to lose access.
Raise the alert.
They don't want to lose access. Yeah. And I don't care about access, so I get in trouble all the time. So I agree with you. And to get back to your first point, before you get to your next point, I agree with you on your first point. It's a big ask out of auto bids. As a college football fan, I do not like it. I've said that from the beginning, even though I reported that this is what the Big Ten is pushing before it was out there in public. And it's being pushed by their media partners, as you alluded to, right? The media partners are using the SEC and the Big Ten as their proxies. But the biggest problem I have with it, Jeff, the biggest problem I have with the auto bids, because if the auto bids happen, and I think they're going to happen, I'm going to find a way to enjoy it, right? We're going to be talking, you and I are going to be talking about the race to whatever. I mean, I'm going to find a way to enjoy it at a certain level because conference races, conference records are more important, playing games, we're all going to be watching, whatever. But beyond everything you've said, the reason I don't like it is the permanency of it. You know, if you're going to have auto bids by conference, then there should be some opening, some exit hatch 3 years down the road where those numbers be adjusted based upon the performance of these conferences. Because you look what happened in basketball. You've got all these auto bids for the SEC. Not auto bids, but they had a whole bunch of teams go in there because they were the best conference. Well, years ago, not too long ago, they weren't the top basketball conference. It was Big 12 or others. And so things change.
Yeah. And before that, the ACC, I mean, they were, when they sort of reformed and realigned, I mean, they were built to be the dominant basketball conference.
So if you're going to have if you're going to have these auto bids, there should be a look-in period, and it can't be every single year because it just won't, that won't pass, it won't happen. But a look-in period where these auto bids can be adjusted so it's not so permanent. The permanency of it really bothers me. But go ahead, Jeff. I just wanted to fall back on your first point, your second point. The floor is back to you, sir.
Yeah, and that's I think maybe Big 12 and ACC. A lot of fans. I think we all realize that we don't have the blue blood brands that the other Super 2 conferences have and such, and being on paper viewed as lesser than. I think that's something that people could get over, but the bigger issue is going to be when a 7-5, let's say Illinois, who had an easy non-conference schedule, but is 6-3 in the ACC in the Big Ten, and they happen to beat in one of these play-in games number three, let's say Nebraska, who's doing better or something,
and then
all of a sudden it's going to happen.
It's
then you have an 8-5 Illinois who wasn't ranked before that game. And is going to have to be vaulted by the committees beyond what they deserve. No, they don't have to be in the top 16, but they're going to have to be ranked, and so maybe they're like 22nd or something. But still, those historically that wouldn't have happened tons, but it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
And just the anti-competitive nature of so many auto bids.
It
is 3-3-2, maybe 3-3-2-2-1-1-1 is a better idea, or. My last point is just about this private capital meeting among some Big 12 and ACC schools. And you mentioned, the secretive or clandestine nature of it. I don't think the reporter said that it's, I think a lot of people are talking about, this is a potential breakaway of the biggest brands. Maybe it is, Occam's razor may point to that, but also, it may be, hey, these are the schools that aren't quite fully on board with it yet. Let's talk to them. Let's answer their questions. Let's get them on board.
And I think maybe that's more likely.
Maybe it's something. Maybe it's something as innocuous as that, and not some. We like to talk about the power and the secretive nature and the conspiracies, but all we know is that it was a meeting that wasn't public, which I don't think any of these meetings would be public anyways with a private company, and that it was, involved several schools from each team, each conference. So, but yeah, love the show, appreciate the content, and I listen all the time I can, man.
You got it. Appreciate it, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, sir. Great call.
Sure. Take care, Greg.
Yeah. I think back to my Gophers last year. My Minnesota Golden Gophers, they weren't close to qualifying for the tournament. But, they beat Illinois. They lost to Penn State 26-25. Penn State, who went to the semifinal game and had Notre Dame up. They were up on Notre Dame 10-0. The Gophers came an eyelash from beating them and beat Illinois, who ended up 9-3. So you're going to have an upset in these playing games because it's college football. You're going to have an upset in these playing games in the SEC and the Big Ten. The Big 12 in the ACC, if the auto bids happen and it's 4-4-2-2, and I don't know, the 4-4, 2.5, 2.5, 1-2, I think is a great compromise, but I really think the Big 12 and ACC should seriously consider. Now, I'm going to get yelled at here by Jeff Fuller and other people, but I think they should seriously look at just naming whoever finishes first in your conference by record or per tiebreaker within the same, who's ever got the same top records. Name that team your champion. So if the Big 12, if Jeff Fuller's BYU team finishes at the top of the conference in the Big 12 by the end of the regular season, this is what I would advise. And Brett Yormark, give me a call. I would advise the Big 12 to name the BYU Cougars the Big 12 champions. They get the trophy, they get the plaque, they get whatever you want, celebration, make it a day, BYU Big 12 champions. However, remember, 4-4-2-2-1-3, which I think is going to happen. I could be wrong, and if I'm wrong, the punishment will happen. But have BYU your champion, and you do not have a Big 12 championship game. Hold on.
From
Steel Austin, can you wait for just a moment, please?
Absolutely. Thanks, Greg.
I appreciate it. I want to finish this now because I want Big 12 people to yell at me here. I want Big 12 people to yell at me. BYU is your champion, but you don't have a Big 12 championship game. You have 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3 playing games. I would advise Brett Yormark, if anyone's listening to me out there, which they're not, do it. Number 1, you have 2 playing games. Those 2 playing games, it's going to be playing game mania going on, right? The Big Ten's going to have a bunch. The SEC is going to have a bunch. You're going to make more money in those 2 playing games than you are with the Big 12 championship game. You are. I think you are. But more importantly, with the Big 12 race, conference race, especially how the Big 12 is, 9 conference games. By the way, you are at a disadvantage versus the ACC 8 conference games when it comes to this 5+11 model. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because you're going to have more conference losses. Just like the Big Ten's been at a disadvantage versus the SEC. There are 8 conference games, 9 conference games. You have 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3. So now during the season, your conference race, you're talking about who's going to be the Big 12 champion, okay, but who's going to get that 2nd spot, who's going to get that 3rd spot, who's going to get that 4th spot. And if you look at the season of last year, any year, you're going to have a good 8 to 9 Big 12 teams, maybe even more, that are going to be in contention to get a play-in spot with 2-3 weeks left to go in the season. And I think that would be of great interest. You're going to have more viewership on those conference games than ever before. I believe that. I'm against these auto bids, blah, blah, blah. But I'm because I think it's going to happen. I'm going to find my way to enjoy this. There are some positive things in them. I don't like the permanence of the numbers, like I said before. But I would have 4 teams involved in the play-in game. You've got 2 games. You're talking about 4 teams instead of just 2. You're talking about the players, the universities, the fan bases. You got more fan bases involved. And when you have 3 auto bids in this model, you have an opportunity. If your number 1 team loses, we're using the BYU example, of course they can lose to a number 4 seed. Then the BYU possibly has the second bite of the apple of getting an at-large bid. I would fight against the I would argue against the option of just having 1 versus 2 Big 12 championship game, and both of them are going to go in the playoffs anyways, and you're probably not going to have, there are not going to be any buys. There is no incentive to drive that. There is no incentive to drive the interest of a conference championship game anymore. So have a 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3. 1 can get into the playoffs. The number 3 team can get in the playoffs. 1 and 2, you've got a chance for an at-large bid if you lose. And I would say the same thing to the ACC. Have more teams involved to try to get into the play-in games. Have that interest. That's how I would do it if I was the Big 12 and the ACC. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong once again. Steel Austin, Mr. Ute is on the line. The floor is yours. Let me know what you're thinking. Go ahead, sir.
Thanks, Greg. I'll try to be brief. I think the thing that most Big 12 fans and the ACC fans are missing is this is not just we're different than the P2 because we're lacking brand power of the conference, the biggest conferences and who they have. I along with most people on these boards follow recruiting pretty closely for my school and schools, in the Big 12 and blah, blah, blah. There's a clear delineation that's occurring between the P2 versus the middle 2 versus the G6 or whatever you want to call them. And it's all based on talent and where talent is going. And all the blue chip talent, for the most part, there's some that that will spill into some of the lower leagues, but the overwhelming blue chip talent is being told that if they want to get the exposure they need and they want to achieve their goals of playing on Sundays, they need to be in the P2. And BYU fans, for example, should know this better than anybody, that for all that time when they were independent, they had a hard time getting, better talent to come to their school because they were being told that, hey, you need to go play for a Pac-12 school, play in the P5. Well, now, those same top talent is wanting to play in the P2. And so, the Big 12 and the ACC schools, with the exception of the big brands that we all know who they are that are going to be locks to go to the P2, but for the most part, it's hard to get that talent. At Utah, we've seen our recruiting take a hit by going to the Big 12 and this whole Power 2 that's formed, and we're seeing that across the board. So, I guess what I'm trying to say, Greg, is I think there's that delusion that exists that the middle 2 leagues are really on the same level as the P2, but we're just, we just don't have the brand power, and that's just not it. It goes way deeper than that. There's a massive talent disparity between the 2 leagues, and there's a massive money gap that exists between the 2 leagues, and that creates a massive, that creates a massive gap as far as, going forward, in competition wise and being able to compete at the same level. You can't just look at it and say, oh, well, Arizona State came a play away from beating Texas or whatever. Well, they lost. And, and we're going to see more of that. And we're only going to see it get widened. We're not seeing Big 12 teams advance through the CFP to the finals. It's just going to get worse. And I guess sure, I'd love Utah to be part of that P2. We're a long shot. It may not happen. Likely not. I don't know. But I guess just sitting here and just trying to act like we're on that same level and we should have the same access and this is so unfair. I just think, it just doesn't make sense. I mean, any rational person has to look at this and go, yeah, these 2 things are not the same. One is different than the other, and here's why, and here's where it's going. The writing is on the wall, people. It's all headed towards the P2. If you're not on that train, you're on the outside looking in, and that's just how it goes. So anyway, I don't know if you agree or disagree with that, but I just
I'm not going to agree or disagree. Obviously there are really good teams in the ACC and the Big 12 every year. We saw Arizona State almost beat Texas, right? We see great players in the ACC and the Big 12 get drafted every single year. But the numbers do show that way more Big 10 and SEC players get drafted. And those schools use that when they're recruiting. I often bring up Minnesota as an example. Lowly Minnesota, right? We're not so lowly. Mm-hmm. We're in the middle of the Big Ten. We're a little bit above average in the Big Ten in football since PJ Fleck's been there. The numbers show that. There are nine football programs out there, 9 of them, that have had a player drafted in the NFL first round or second round 6 straight years. Only 9 of them. 8 of them are blue bloods, and the 9th one is Minnesota. And I can tell you that if Minnesota wasn't in the Big Ten, there's no way in hell that they would have been able to do that. Not Minnesota, where there is no recruiting grounds in football in the state of Minnesota, or barely anything. Right. So there are examples of that. No question about it. There is but again, I still, maybe I'm a sucker, maybe I'm naive, but I believe in Cinderella. I believe in David versus Goliath. I'm on David's team. I think there's opportunities out there. I don't think the door is completely shut on the competition outside of P2.
I agree with you that on any given day, a team can rise up and play, out of their minds, and a much greater team can have a bad day and stumble. Yeah. Just like Notre Dame losing to whoever who did they lose to last year?
Northern Illinois.
That can happen. But at the same time, if you just look at the rosters, ASU had no business being on the same field as that Texas team.
Yeah.
Now they played great in all of this, but I'm sorry, there's just no comparison between the two teams. It's just crazy, and they came a play away. But my point is maybe if you go back to the 4-team playoff, and you got an ASU that somehow rolled through their schedule and squeaked into the 4-team playoff, I could see them getting hot and playing, one amazing game, kind of like TCU did, playing that one great game and getting to the national championship game, and then anything can happen. Well, TCU obviously got blown out, and it's unfortunate, but hey, they made it to the national championship game. Well, now you fast forward to a 14 or a 16-team playoff, and anybody that thinks that a roster with the talent level of what's in the Big 12 and the ACC or lesser is going to be able to make it through 4 playoff games after a grueling 12 plus 1 additional play-in game season, I'm sorry, they're kidding themselves. There's no way. It's never going to happen. It's impossible. You might win 1 or 2 games, but if you think you're going to win 4 games in a CFP format and without the depth of, let's face it, the top of the SEC and the top of the Big Ten are littered with 4- and 5-star guys, not just in their starters, but their depth as well. And that doesn't exist in the Big 12 and the ACC, except for those few teams we know who they are that are going to be eventually, going to the P2. But anyway, I'll let somebody else call in. But that's just what I want to say.
Appreciate it, Mr. Steele.
Thanks, Greg.
Beautiful call.
Thanks, man.
Yep.
See ya.
We do have some breaking news. Thank you, Ryan Brooks, LSU Tiger. Although the breaking news happened a while ago, I did not see it. Breaking news, breaking news. First of all, before we get to the breaking news, a little tease. Curtis 316, I think it might be impossible to name a Big 12 champion at the end of the regular season because some teams don't play each other. There's always that slight possibility. Two could be undefeated at the end. All those are great points. I think you might have to name somebody, but I get it. It's not a good... That part of my argument falls down. No question about it. But I don't think in this time, I think having 4 Big 12 teams involved in playing weekend instead of only 2, in which it doesn't really matter who wins. I think you should go with 4, but this is a good comment against my recommendation to Mr. Brett Yormark. Great comment, Curtis 316. Okay, let's go to the breaking news. Hold on, everybody. Hold on. I'm having problems here. Here we go. Ross Dellinger, Greg Sankey said coaches did indeed discuss several CFP format models today, including the 5+11 referenced yesterday. Sankey described their feeling on that model as, why wouldn't that be fine? According to SEC athletic directors, the answer to why a 5+11 would not be fine is that, number one, the SEC wouldn't move to 9 conference games. Number 2, the SEC couldn't hold long discussed play-in games. And number 3, a reliance on the selection committee. So the SEC athletic directors are like, we're going to lose money on all this stuff. We need money. We're going to lose money on all this stuff. We're not going to have playing games. We're not going to go to 9 conference games. There's really no incentive to have the cross-rival game. You're not going to be able to do the cross-scheduling with the Big Ten. So my question is, were the coaches just asking, why wouldn't that be fine? Or were they saying, we want the 5+11? Now, there was a report by Ross Dellinger a few weeks ago that had the SEC coaches were in favor of the 4 auto bids. Remember when Ross Dellinger, there was an article out there, we did it live, we showed you the article that said the SEC, that administrators, presidents, and coaches were starting to favor the 4 auto bids, along with the Big Ten, obviously. So why wouldn't that be fine? Maybe the coaches were bringing up like, so why wouldn't this 5+11 work? Why wouldn't it work? And then the athletic directors are like, because the 9 conference games you can't do the play-in games, and you can't do the Big Ten crossover, and the reliance on the selection committee. That one is a big one. I mean, they're all big ones. But the reliance on the selection committee, as we have said here at Peek Around the Corner, as we have said here to begin our show, the title of our show, it sounds to me the SEC tipped their hands on the college football playoff format. You've got this guy here. You've got Scott Strickland, the Florida athletic director, saying a committee is not ideal to choose a postseason. I question whether it is appropriate for a college football. And then you've got the Oklahoma athletic director basically ripping on the reliance of the playoff committee. So I think that's where we're heading. I still think we're heading towards the 4-4-2-2-1-3. And then the war is going to continue on after that. I don't like the permanence of it. Hopefully they have an exit hatch built into it. But we are going to follow the story wherever it takes us. I want to thank everybody. We've been on the air for almost 2.5 hours. I want to thank the Big Gun Shop, Ryan Willie, MBM, and Ricky Tungate for your donations to help us keep the lights on here as we do a 2.5 hour show. We've also did an episode, 436. Go watch that episode, 436 of earlier today. We really get in the deep weeds on the discussion of the college football playoffs. But thank you guys, everybody, for joining us here at College Football's Peek Around the Corner. Make sure, if you haven't done it yet, make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on those notifications, because we can come on live at any time. So you got to subscribe and you got to turn on those notifications. If you've enjoyed our content today, please smash the like button. It helps us with the YouTube algorithms so very much. Thank you for the phone calls. Thank you for the great comments in the chat room. And of course, the donations to help us keep the lights on. Buckle up, brace for impact, keep your head on a swivel. It is crazy out there in the college football world, and we are going to cover it all. From all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.